Welcome back, everyone. It's another SaaS Connect mini on one. It's the end of year, but we have the amazing and quite capable NeetiGupta here from VMware. She'll be speaking at SaaS Connect 2023. And I was just talking to her and realized that, hey, everyone's quarter happens to start in January because that's how time works. So we thought we'd do an AMA just the end of this year to talk about the problem, which is Microsoft. Amazing or super amazing? How do we make them make us all the money that we deserve? And Neeti has the answer. So let me just say, this is not a normal one-on-one. This is a many-on-one. But so put your hand up, and then if you have a question, interrupt. This is like a précis of what she'll be talking about in April. And everyone do buy your tickets because the early bird's ending soon, saasconnect.org. But like Neeti, so let me just do a quick intro and then you should introduce yourself. You're at VMware. We talked about titles because I think that's a currently hilarious conversation on LinkedIn about partnership people and titles. But you have a really good title, which is you're head of the Microsoft Alliance strategic partnership at VMware, which is a significant portfolio. And you've managed to take it from not something to something big inside of 2 years, which is, you think would be easy for something like VMware, but of course, nothing is easy because everything is smaller than Microsoft. So it's quite impressive. So thanks for doing this. And why don't you introduce yourself? It's not like you only worked at VMware. You've also have quite a career history that led to this. So I'll turn it to you.
So I fell into partnerships 20 years back when I was at Microsoft. I just thought it was interesting that Microsoft business model was partnerships, and I was interested in learning more. And since I was there, I gravitated towards more partnership roles. So I worked in the developer platform evangelism team, and then the ISV team, and then the partner network, and really got to learn how Microsoft works and how they engage partners in different capacities. And then I was giving advice to Microsoft partners on how they should transform their businesses and go through the digital transformation. And I realized that I had no practical experience. So that led me to go work for a Microsoft partner, GE Healthcare. And I was there for 5 years. And I kept getting recruited to manage these hyperscaler or public cloud partnerships. So went to Meta, and then VMware reached out to me about 2 years back and said, hey, do you want to kind of come help grow our Microsoft partnership? We have so much we can do, but we barely scratched the surface. And we are setting up this, we have a small team that's doing some foundation work, but we need someone to lead it and take it to the next level. So that's kind of really my journey in my little intro. I live in San Francisco right now. I'm in Seattle a lot because that's where Microsoft headquarters is and corporate strategies, and also the US subsidiary key people that we work with are there. And then Sunil and I met at SaaS Connect, and we've also, recently he had a networking event in the Bay Area, and I met him again, and I was like, hey, I think I've started to crack the nut on how to navigate Microsoft as a partner, having done this for so many years at different companies. Maybe I should go start talking about this. And he said, great. I've been trying to figure this out too. So that's kind of a little background in the story and why I'm here. As I know Sunil said, I will have all the answers. I think he's wrong. I don't think I will have all the answers, but as a team, we can learn together. And hopefully your questions will spark some explorations for me as well. So thank you for joining today. I know it's the holiday season. I'm sure there's busy things happening at home, but I promise this will be fun.
I will tell you, I've had many not so successful attempts to build a relationship with Microsoft. I think the most successful, we got them eventually onto the board of the CSA for a while. But what I kept learning is that I was always talking to the wrong person, and the person I was talking to didn't even know they were the wrong person, who the right person was. A lot of them don't even care about any of us. I've had weird conversations where they ask me who the members of the CSA are, And I said, oh, big companies like MailChimp, Zendesk, TalkDesk, whatever. And they're like, never heard of any of them. I was like, oh. And they mentioned some like bespoke random thing on Azure Marketplace with 16 installs. And they say, look at that. And it's just like, wow, we just live in like Mars and Venus. But the opportunity is huge because they have over $1 trillion aftermarket.
Right.
And those who are successful with them, I mean, our former chair Dwight, he did magic stuff at Skykick with and Nimble with Microsoft. It's quite lucrative. So what am I doing wrong talking to Microsoft? What is everyone doing wrong talking to Microsoft? And what is the right way? I mean, that's the first question.
I think the first is to set the context is Microsoft is 300,000 employees. Even if you decided to talk to every employee, it would take a lifetime. So don't do that. I think that's my first lesson learned. And I think this is true for partnership and it's true for Microsoft as well, is what is really the value proposition for the partnership? Why would Microsoft care is the first question. And having done this in many places, I can tell you that question never gets answered. Most people leap into activities of trying to talk to some Microsoft person and hoping that something will come out of it. And Sunil, I'm not saying you are doing that because you know what the value proposition is for CSA and you're probably pitching it. The question is going to be, the one thing that I learned about Microsoft and my friends and my colleagues at Microsoft is their commitments are king. So they have a fiscal year. They're heading into the H2 now, starting January. It's July to June. That's kind of a cycle. They plan in March. So you have to figure out when are they going to start writing the commitments. And you have to then identify through connections that you have quickly who has a commitment to grow your something partnership that is similar to yours. And then the question becomes, how do you find that, right? So there are two kinds of partners in the Microsoft ecosystem. One are what I call the managed partners, which is, VMware kind of falls in that. And then there's the unmanaged, which is, I am a startup. I'm starting to figure out what to do with myself, and I need to now go work with Microsoft. So if you fall in the unmanaged category, then my recommendation is go become part of some of the programs, because those programs, for example, now they just launched an ISV program, which is actually meant for when you become part of that ISV program. Now there is a program manager who is now responsible and has commitments against making small ISVs successful. Now that becomes your door. Obviously, that means the way the system works is that you then have to obviously do the hard work of meeting the requirements of the program that they have set out, right? And as a managed ISV, I think the trick for us was we had a point person, a partner development manager, but we were underutilizing that expert who was actually there for us to help us navigate Microsoft and find the right people for the right conversations. So that's one. The second is with Microsoft, you have to do the work. They are not going to do the work for you. And what I mean by that is if you're going to do a pitch and you want them to go pitch internally, you do the pitch deck, right? You roll up your sleeves, you work with your whoever your point person is at that point, and you say, I'm going to kind of do all the work that will make you look good, right? So I understand the commitments of the person that I'm working with, and that's the first conversation you have. What is in your commitments? And if something that you are bringing to the table is not in their commitments, that's the wrong person you're talking to, because nothing is going to happen. You can have really good conversations, you can buy them dinner, but nothing is going to really happen until you become part of their commitments. So what I've done in the past is I've actually convinced people who were part of my network to have me as a partner in their commitments, right? And obviously that means you have to spend a lot of time understanding how their organization is successful at Microsoft, how his team is or her team is successful at Microsoft, and how he or she is going to be successful. And that is the holy grail of how you get things done with Microsoft, is understanding what who those people are, who will be willing to carry that commitment, which actually is your value proposition to Microsoft. So I'm going to pause there and see, one, if it answered the question you had, and then second, if other people had any thoughts as I was kind of talking through this.
Okay, I have a key question. Well, and remember, please ask questions at this point, because I think a lot of you are trying to navigate things. And don't forget, Neeti worked at Microsoft, so I think that might have been an advantage you have.
That is definitely an advantage. And I actually was in the trenches. So that is also an advantage, because that's where most of the Microsoft action actually happens, is in the trenches. You have to know the product, the partner manager, or the partner product manager who's actually going to go do that integration or that co-marketing. You have to know the marketing manager. And those are the people who actually have the budget. And those are the people who actually are going to do the work.
So here's what I've experienced. So first, I work at startups my whole career, basically, except for a brief stint at IBM, which I did not enjoy. So I don't work at big companies. And I approached Microsoft providing a value prop like I do normally to like startups, talking about the end customer and the big vision for how the companies could work together. And I would get the BlackBerry, they would turn on their Zune or BlackBerry, whatever the hell they had, turn around and ignore me, basically, because I was talking the wrong language to a Microsoft person. And then what I learned, and that's literally what would happen at trade shows. They're just like, I don't care. They like no interest. Overall picture.
Did you ask the person what is in their commitments?
No, I didn't even understand that, because to me, a normal startup VP partnerships would be interested in the whole picture. And I was like living on a different wavelength to them. Yeah. And so then so the one hand, most people at Microsoft have absolutely no impact on the overall picture. They're living in a little box. That I learned. Second is I can't find them because their titles are like randomly encrypted, like grab bag words. They don't mean anything. Even the programs don't mean anything. So how do you find the person with an aligned commitment? Because it just seems like I started getting more narrow on this, but they were just like, I don't know, they passed me around randomly. I think I got to the right person, but their KPIs are, just like over here, slightly. If they're even like 1 inch away from your core target, they're not going to be able to do anything, right? So how do you find that right person? I think that's the big magic question.
The first thing is don't get it. Persistence does pay with Microsoft. So if you've talked to 3 people and you're not in their commitments, then don't give up, because you have to start somewhere, and you have to start with the people you know. So start with people you know and ask them for advice. Don't go tell them. Don't give your VP of startup pitch to them. Just spend time figuring out, who can open doors for you and who might have the commitment. And I'm telling you, you have to figure out. And the question is very direct. The question is, hey, so-and-so, what are you working on and what is in your commitments? And here is a commitment. Someone who should have that, who could have that commitment, is the person I'm looking for. And because you're working with startups, it could be person who has startups in their commitment. Can you help me find people who have? So I think it's those series of questions are going to be the ones that are going to help you find that. And they are organizations who are focused on startups, who are focused on figuring out how to enable and grow startups and support startups through accelerator programs, and that's how, like, if I had to do that once again, that's what I would do, is I would actually start with the network that I have. And then I've also used other people who are managing Microsoft. So, and on a regular basis, I talk to people who are managing Microsoft for different partners as well. So my network also is not just Microsoft people, but also other people who manage net. And I use that to navigate Microsoft and finding the right person. And that takes a little bit of effort. So if you spoke to 2 people and you've given up, then that's not going to work either, because it does require a kind of structured follow-up and a trail that you create. In fact, I keep an Excel sheet of who I've met. What did I talk about? What is the commitment and who did they talk to? And then I do some research on LinkedIn and other places before I go and pursue that. It is business development 101, but it is the only way for you to start navigating it. And the conversation is, in fact, there was a time where every 3:00, every day, I spoke to a Microsoft person or someone in the network. And it was a very structured, systematic follow through. It wasn't, today I wake up and now I'm excited about Microsoft and I'll just talk to them. It was very like systematically going on a pursuit, right? And find that person. And I did find that person. It took effort. It wasn't 2 people. It took 15 people before I landed it. But I got there, right? And it does take time. And unfortunately, Microsoft is so large and there's so many organizations and it's constantly reorganizing itself that even if you found that person, you might find that tomorrow they've gotten reorganized, but then you have to be at it. And that persistent pays. And a network over time will also pay because you hear things from other people that will help you find your thing. But clarity in your own purpose and clarity in the questions you ask Microsoft people is going to help, is the equation. Right.
I just created a Microsoft channel in our Slack, by the way, so that we can all
perfect.
Something we should have done. We have Salesforce. I'll create AWS and Google later. It's actually
so we can actually start coordinating. Is like, hey, who do you know? I'm trying to figure out, this is my purpose. Can you help me connect with the right person? So look, we just created a forum where it would make it easy to navigate Microsoft.
All right, I'm going to stop asking questions because now I think we've set the
maybe
conversation.
This is
we have some hands up. So
yeah. So
let's help each other out. Josephine, I'm going to put your hand up. Turn to you.
I think Miguel beat me to the punch if he had something.
Rock, paper, scissors, guys.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah. Hi, Miguel.
So thanks for setting up this call. So I'm also an ex-Microsoftie. I left Microsoft this summer. I'm based in Paris, and I've been working for many years in partner-related roles. A long time in our OEM division, which is the division that manages the relationship with our key PC manufacturers, the Lenovo's, Dell's, HPs of this world, in co-marketing roles for pan-EMEA. And then I had also, my last stint for a few years was in the cloud division. And all that Neeti is saying, I hope I say your name right, Neeti.
Yeah, that's good.
Is exactly what I experienced. And I sympathize with you, Sunir, when you say it's sometimes difficult to get this relationship going. Maybe the only perspective I can give is sitting in Europe compared to Redmond. And I also used to travel a lot to Redmond, and Redmond has always been a little bit of a tricky situation because it's worldwide, but it's also the US, right?
Yep.
When you come to Europe, let's talk about Europe, you already start getting into probably there's still the challenges of identifying who to speak to. The good side of it is that the subsidiaries in Europe are relatively small. The biggest subsidiaries are France, Germany, UK, and they're probably about 2,000, 2,500 people, right? But they've also got European headquarters. But you then go to subsidiaries, mid-sized subsidiaries like Italy or Spain, and it's a few hundreds. And so the good news is it's easier than to start figuring out who to talk to. If you're in France and you're working in the French ecosystem, you're very quickly going to learn the name of who's the GM of the GPS division. You're going to find out who is the ISV director and all the PDMs, the sales, that work under him and so on. And so in a way, what Neeti says is that you need to do that sort of systematic, approach, but then you have events. You start going to events. You start, signing up to Inspire and all of these key events and the channel events. You start going also to other channel events, and you very quickly at country level figure out who that person is. And you want to figure out who those people are at country level, because the pan-European PDMs probably are going to be more of a challenge. So people like VMware also have alliances at regional and headquarters. But everything is happening in the field. So from that point of view, I think what Neeti is saying is correct. I just put, I also agree with what Neeti says about the managed and unmanaged. And certainly Microsoft is going in a very programmatic fashion and trying to, in a way, automate as much as possible, going digital. So there's a lot of it which is also self-serve. I've actually put up the link to the Founders Hub or the Microsoft Hub, which is basically the program for ISVs or startups, right? What is an ISV? What is a startup? For me, they're the same thing, right? And you will find that when you start signing up to those programs, there's a lot of benefits that you can actually self-serve yourself with, right? And you will also find that a lot of it can be done on the phone, right? So the other thing also to bear in mind is, this point that Neeti was talking about, what are the commits? Most of these PDMs, for example, are measured on Azure consumption and this notion of co-selling, right? And so if you're a big partner like VMware, that's where you're going to start. And probably Neeti, you're going to talk about this notion of co-selling and this notion of actually having applications on their marketplace. They have one for Azure and one for the apps. And when you start getting to a co-sell mode, that's where you also start, getting their attention and their relevance, right? If you're a smaller ISV, to be honest with you, you're going to be less of an interest because you're not going to scale enough for them. And so the way you're going to scale is indirectly through these programs. So just wanted to give my sort of perspective sitting here in Europe, which very much aligns to, what Neeti is saying from a US/worldwide perspective.
Yeah. And definitely, I think there are 2 points that, as Miguel was talking, one, Microsoft has a jargon. And if you don't know the jargon, you are an outsider. And a part of managing Microsoft is also quickly learning the jargon. If you were just listening to Miguel carefully and you've never been in the Microsoft ecosystem, never talked to a Microsoft person, half of the things he just said, you'll be like, what is he talking about? What are these acronyms? What is an ISV? And when I joined GE after Microsoft, my boss actually asked me all these questions. In fact, the first presentation I did was, what is a partner? So and what does partnership mean? And what does it then talk about? What does it mean to partner with Microsoft? So again, I just wanted to kind of, point out that navigating Microsoft, one key aspect is understanding that jargon. And after being away from Microsoft for so long, even though I'm in the community, I sometimes have to go and ask a few of the friends and say, hey, there's this new jargon. What are you guys talking about now? Can you explain this to me? What does it really mean when you say blah, 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 right? So, and I think the other point that Miguel made, and which is fair, is that there is the US and there's worldwide and there's rest of the world. And I have found success working with the UK subsidiary, Germany and France, as Miguel was saying, because they are smaller, they're easy to navigate. So in fact, we have one person who's dedicated to just EMEA relationships. And sometimes we, try out an idea there and then bring it back. So that is also a good strategy to navigate Microsoft, is help the subsidiary innovate or get your idea and let them sell it back to the worldwide team. That has also worked for yes, not, I wouldn't say startup sooner, but a little larger mid-sized companies and managed partners for sure.
And I agree, sorry if I interrupt on that, but I agree, it's a bit like when you're trying to sell something, you don't want to sell immediately the whole stack. And you want to have a bit of the humility to start small, sort of crawl, get up and run. I forget the exact way you say it, but you want to start small and build on that. And then to Neeti's point, it then gets, if it works well, and typically the UK is a great one for evangelizing that, because also the language is helps a lot. And they tend to have a more, direct relationship with corp, just because sometimes the language, not that in the other countries don't speak English, don't get me wrong. The Nordics also can scale pretty quick. You got 4 Scandinavian countries. You get one of them, you get those 4 Scandinavian countries. You get regional headquarters in Germany for Central and Eastern Europe. That can work well. in Eastern Europe, you can get Poland and Czech Republic going. And when you start building a mass with those big countries there, then you start getting the rest of the region also moving.
All right, we had two. Josephine, you had a question, and Bradley, you had a question. Thank you, Miguel. Good insights from your OEM world.
Thank you so much. I'm coming at it from a fairly unique perspective. So if I say something which does not match the jargon, please just let me know. So I work with a design agency called WeBuild. We specialize in fintech and B2B SaaS products and product design. But lately, we've been doing a lot of work with marketing assets for some of our long-term clients. I've had a couple people in the last few months come to us and ask for support creating these pitch decks for Microsoft, which is a language very outside of what I do. And one of the things which I've heard a couple of times is they're looking for something that lasts and goes through these various cycles in various offices and departments and partners, and is, I guess, agile. And when you're speaking to, we need to understand the jargon, we need to understand the design, so it actually is the language which is spoken at Microsoft. I'm curious if you have any guidance on how to do that, or how to access those resources and what you're looking for in those decks.
Okay, so I don't have the full context of what decks you're producing, but I don't know if Josephine, you checked, but my background is actually in design, product design, and I navigated to business development and alliances later in my life. So I understand the task at hand that you have. The question is, who are you selling to at Microsoft?
So this is the tricky part where I can't get too much into details on any of this, but we've had a number of times where we have ISV partners who are looking to get more integrated into the Microsoft ecosystem, and they're looking to sell themselves internally at Microsoft. Okay. So to your earlier.
Okay, so pitch decks are for someone like me who is, ISV and has to go and sell ideas to Microsoft. That's actually great. Maybe you should actually reach out to me after this and help. So so I think going to the leaders like myself, and Microsoft actually publishes a great list of, so if you actually do a Google search or a Bing search on, top US ISVs or top UK ISVs or top system integrators, there is a public list of partners. And then I would actually use LinkedIn extensively before you even start talking to people. And I do that all the time. And I can tell you how much time it has saved, because I can't go physically to every event just to network, right? And for last 3 years, because of COVID, there wasn't. So I started depending on LinkedIn heavily. So I think step one, who are the Microsoft partners? Step two, who are the people who are leading that alliances or the partnership? And you can find people easily on LinkedIn. And I have been able to do that. I think once you have those people, then that's your audience. And first you have conversations with them and then ask them, who is your partner development manager, PDM, as Miguel was saying? Or who's your partner marketing manager? Because those are the people who will have the resources to pay you if you're a Microsoft vendor, or they will have, like people like me will have resources to help pay you so that they can pitch. Because sometimes Microsoft also funds us to do pitch decks for their business units. So I've actually worked with some agencies where they have helped us create an end-to-end go-to-market or a pitch deck where we've then gone back into Microsoft to the Azure business groups and pitch that. So that's how I would, again, I'm just kind of brainstorming here with you, like that's how I would approach this problem. If I understood your problem correctly, is like, who do I go to? Is identifying who the Microsoft partners are and then using their leaders, people like me, to help you navigate, because I can then tell you, you should go talk to XYZ because these are the people at Microsoft. And that will short circuit your time. Otherwise, you'll go talk to Microsoft and they will not give you the list. I mean, it's public. You can just go check online.
That's incredibly strategic. Thank you. I will definitely do that.
And let me know how it goes. And otherwise we'll contemplate another strategy. But I think that would work.
I'll use that as a jumping off point for sure. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Josephine. Bradley, what about you?
Yeah, it's more of a comment more so than a question per se. But Josephine, to your point, our company is called Blackhawk Network. And we're an ISV, we're a managed partner. We actually built an application for Microsoft Teams, and then building one on top of D365, just being, if you do get connected into their managed partner, Microsoft they at least gave us like templates to use. So because they want to have content that they can give to their sales team to then share to customers. And as you can imagine, Microsoft has I won't call it rigid, but very streamlined way of presenting information. So while we took their templates and added in our verbiage into those, then you can create your own presentations, but then that does have to get approved by Microsoft. We created a video, we created a presentation, and they wanted that stuff approved for what it's worth. My question, maybe it's guidance for those that are on this call, and Neeti, knowing that you're part of VMware, and I presume because you sell your solution to the IT team. One thing and one comment I have to those here that I think is really important is to make sure you understand who your ideal customer profile is, because it really, really needs to be to the IT team who is your purchase decision maker. And the reason I say that is our solution, we built we're a rewards platform, so we can send digital rewards like gift cards through Microsoft Teams. But that's not necessarily the purchaser within Microsoft customer space, right? It's not the IT team that's making that purchase decision. So I think it's really important for all that that are really asking themselves, we want to partner with Microsoft. Obviously, it's a great brand name. What's also important to realize is, again, how you can work with them to reach the customer that's making that purchase decision. And again, I just highly recommend asking yourself, is the purchaser the IT team within the potential customer, or is it marketing, or is it another division within the company? Because for example, we went to Microsoft Ignite conference, and it's obviously very full of IT individuals. Yeah. But if that's not your ideal customer profile, or the person that's actually going to buy your technology, then that sort of a large event you might think be great may not actually be.
Yeah, I think that is 100% accurate, and that's my experience as well. Microsoft does really well with IT pros and developers, especially if you kind of use build as the developer. So knowing which event is for who is important. Also knowing your audience is important. The only thing I would say is that when you talk to Microsoft people, you have to understand what they care about. So the pitch deck that you put together is for the seller, and it should have all the customer information. What's your customer evidence, what's the value proposition, and all the good stuff that Bradley talked about. However, when I first meet with Microsoft sellers, I ask them about how are they compensated. I ask them what is in their commitments. And if you don't understand that, you may have the most amazing pitch deck, and I've spent a lot of dollars, polishing my pitch decks as well. It doesn't lead you anywhere because you have not said that I'm going to help you drive ACR. So some of the things I've done is I basically say, here's the deal size, here's the ACR it's going to drive for you. It's a really big amount that's going to help you burn down your customer Microsoft Azure Mac commitments. So, right, it's a commitment, an incentive that Microsoft provides. And you, seller, Miss or Mr. Seller, is going to be able to burn your quota within the next quarter if you work with us. And that's my pitch. It is very different from really what I would have done if, as being in the Valley, and I'm going to different VCs where you would talk about, here's my value proposition, here's what they're working back from the customer, this is what I want. But that's not what I'm telling the Microsoft seller. I mean, I give them that content later, once I've established and told them it's worth spending time with me because I have something valuable to give you. Now, let's have the conversation about the value proposition. Let's have the conversation about which customer we have closed together. right? Here's a WinWire about that. Here's a video about this mutual customer. So again, I'm just sharing my experience, what has worked well for me, and how I layered that information is the same information I'm providing that you're providing. I just start with what's in it for you. And I don't know how else to say it.
Does your technology run on Azure itself?
Yes.
Yeah, that's another really, really big thing to realize and understand fundamentally about your organization if you're trying to partner with Microsoft. Because if your technology runs on Microsoft, that's a big plus. If your stuff runs on AWS, it's going to be a big uphill challenge.
What I would say on that is it goes back to another thing. I don't think it's an issue whether it's running on Amazon or Google. I think it's more the fact that if it's running on Azure, it helps them to achieve their ACR, which is what Neeti said.
That's right.
She said the root word as well. There you go. She's talking jargon as well.
Exactly. I'm converted.
There you go. You see, we all fall into it as ex-Microsofties. So I would say our customers, our end customers, are multi-platform. I always like to say there is only one company that runs 100% on Azure, and that is Microsoft. But our end customers are running on multiple platforms, right? And so it's a question more of saying, is your solution going to allow that seller to achieve their ACR, the Azure consumed revenue? And then in that case, as to Bradley's point, then that's where you're going to have their interest. But I don't think that if you're also running on AWS, they're going to say, we don't want to work with you. But you're going to show them that on Azure, it's worth them spending time with you, right? Microsoft is a company that has Office 365 available for Apple. So I think from that point of view, they've clearly shown that they're able to switch from one platform to the other. But it's that ACR is the crux, is the nerve of the war, of the game, if you see what I mean. That's what you want to crack.
Yeah, appreciate that clarification, Miguel. That's exactly right. It's about getting the attention of the Microsoft sellers, right? Their sales reps. What's in it for them? Because it helps them hit their quota.
Right. Exactly. It's more sellers are coin operated, so it shouldn't be any different there either. I think the other cultural nuance to also hone into is sometimes I use the competitive threat. So I do talk about the public cloud competition in my pitches and say, hey, if you want to help get XYZ product on your platform, then Microsoft, and that is something I've gone as a pitch deck where I've said, put it on your put this old technology on your platform and fund us to do that. And I've been successful and did that at GE very successfully. We were able to get an incremental investment in millions of dollars to actually flip some of the on-prem solutions on Azure platform. And I did use AWS in the other competitive, because that is the cultural DNA. Microsoft is very motivated when you talk about that competition. They do want, they do want to win like any of us. So kind of use that cultural understanding as a lever in navigating Microsoft.
Can we take a little sidebar into Office 365 before we get to Sam's question?
Yes.
So one thing that I found confounding, and it may have changed in the many years since, but I think it may be still true, but I find that partnering, you would think that Office 365 would have an independent target than the Azure marketplace, but I don't know if that's true, because talking to them, I haven't found anyone over there who is interested in just increasing the value prop of Office 365 by integrating into other apps, except for like these smaller partners. But I don't know if there's a strategic goal to just integrate with everything and then become the most powerful Office suite of all the internet software. But I could be wrong. And if so, who would we talk to? Because a lot of these CSA members are not Azure drivers, but they're Office 365 drivers.
Office is a platform in its own right, just like Azure, like Windows. It means that Office, you actually develop on it, right? And therefore, Teams is one side of it. Power BI, there's low code, no code. It's all integrated. So And again, I hate to repeat it, but it all goes back. Consumption of Office means consumption of Azure in many cases as well. So it all sort of, and with Office, the big obviously strategic move is to move customers up from E3 to E5, and so add all the stack. So, obviously it was at the beginning just moving the email and so on, and then bringing in the collaboration. But then there's a whole notion of security, right? And as I said, Teams is integrated in all of that with all of the productivity. And there's great opportunities for partners then to build, integrated solutions, bring in consultancy, bring in change management. All of that comes in together, if you see what I mean. Okay.
Yeah. So, Sunit, the way I navigated Office was not through the global partner organization. The way I navigated Office was through the product team. And that was basically, we pitched an integration of our desktop solution, which we also sell. Basically, it's for the new hires. When you come as a new hire, we have an integrated desktop experience that VMware sells. So we actually used that and went to Microsoft. In fact, we used to compete with Microsoft on that. And we went and pitched an integration with Microsoft 365 and went directly to the product team and basically said, hey, this could be a cool functionality that you could launch as a product manager. And that really tied into his commitments because he was looking for what to release next. And so we used that and then went back to the GPS organization and said, look, sounds like we have a win here. Now let's figure out what the go-to-market is, and did a pitch deck on what the go-to-market could look like, where we talked about the strength of the VMware marketing team and how we can actually bring that to bear. So nothing was, and it was musical for the product manager to say, not only there's a feature and we'll help build the integration, but also we are going to help leverage our VMware marketing muscle to promote his feature. Like that's music to any product manager. If you've been a product manager, you know that you want to get that out and you want to get it promoted. And in fact, we announced that in our last event, and we are working with our customers to kind of talk about customer evidence and case studies now. So again, that was a different tact. It wasn't the tact we use for Azure. It wasn't the story we talked about Azure consumption. It was a very different tact, very different way of navigating, and it required some lateral thinking on our side, right? That we basically had to think outside the box and say, who's the new person? Is he a new leader? If it's a new leader for product management, let's go have the conversation. And we leveraged our product team. It wasn't led by the partnerships team. It was led by the product team, and we provided surround support for them to have that conversation. We opened the doors. I met with the product leader after my product team has been working and say, hey, what do you need from us to unblock you to go to your boss? And then I asked my team to work together on providing, this is the pipeline of customers. These are the customers' logos. I mean, so this is all what Josephine was talking about. These pitch decks can come in different shapes and forms. Some are for the sales teams, so they can sell your existing product. Some are for ideas that don't even exist. And we work on all of those, right? As a business development, we are not just saying, here's a product that already exists, is on Azure or integrated with Teams or integrated with Office 365. Let's now go to market. That is Global Partner Solutions Organization. They'll help you because that's their charter. But when it's a new idea, what do you do? Who do you go to? That integration doesn't exist, or that thing doesn't exist on the Microsoft platform. And so who's going to listen? Who's going to actually value, and who's going to get promoted as a result of you working with them? So, we have worked actively to get people promoted at Microsoft. I mean, I know when their reviews are, I know, I actually write feedback to their managers and their managers about them. Like this is, it is a system, and you have to kind of follow the system to navigate the system. And those, when they get promoted, they become your champions and advocates. And it has also helped me as I moved around. Those are the people who come back and say, hey, Neeti, we see you're at VMware, let's talk. Neeti, you're at this other organization, let's talk, right? So you constantly building that navigation machine because you'll need that. And I use LinkedIn. I mean, I use LinkedIn to the nth now. I mean, it's their product and platform now. So that also works into your advantage. I say, I'm using your platform. So it's great.
That's a little reveal what the talk will be in April. But yeah, that's actually part of your magic, is you've been really like marketing your counterparts. And I think the biggest takeaway is, like, for me from listening to you, is that it's employee-based marketing over there. Like, you're not marketing to Microsoft, you're marketing to Joe and Sarah, right, and Omar. You're trying to get them promoted. That's all that matters sitting over there. No one cares about any of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a large organization. If you're a part of a 300,000 employee company, you have a very narrow role. You are being rewarded for some of the commitments that you've created for yourself. So you want them to be successful, and their success creates success for us. I mean, it's we are helping them. I mean, it's, this is what mom told me when growing up, like, go help other people and they'll help you. And it's really true for partnerships as well. Like, I don't know how else to say it.
What a surprise. We should get to Sam's question, speaking of helping people. So
yeah.
full of jargon.
Sam was there. So Sam knows what I'm talking about. Right,
yeah,
Sam?
Exactly. I work, it's a club, it's a you have to know the folks. So, just to introduce myself, around 30 plus years experience. And, last 12 years, I've been helping in partnership globally to a Carlyle group, sold for 100 plus million. Worked for another startup, and then I was hired at Microsoft. Within 30 minutes, they made me an offer, and I joined and managed the US West Academic Medical Center accounts. And then I pushed back with my third manager in 1.5 years to do the CSAM work. And I said, this is not me. And I left, and I joined, Cloud IQ, helping them. The beauty is they're in apps modernization, and they are growing without any help from Microsoft account executives. And when I saw the revenue with the top 3 customers, it's a Fortune 50. And they say, no, we want to give you business for apps and modernization. And they were doing wonderful. And now I'm trying to leverage that to accelerate into co-sale. I'm having a difficult time to assign a PDM. So by the way, I'll use a lot of acronyms again. You have to be born there or live there. So it's a partner development manager, and reach out to account executive. They changed client executive. Now they're going back to account executives. SSPs are sales solution specialists. I stay away from cloud solution architects. As you said, it's like more into different areas. And how do I get attraction? Because, I have a lot of contacts. I'm reaching out, but it's the Christmas time. It's my first month, and, it's a very slow response. And I want to leverage this momentum that they have to, help them.
Timing is wrong. Reach out to them after January 15th. They will be there. Right now, Microsoft is closed, officially closed. I actually told my team, please do not work in the last 2 weeks, because no one from Microsoft is going to answer your email. So I'm going to tell you the same thing, Sam. You were there, that, it's Christmas time. Everyone's taking time off when I've disappeared, and you will get their out of office messages. By the way, I also use those out of office messages and have an Excel sheet for that, because they give you very vital information in those out of office messages, which includes their cell phone number, which you usually have a hard time. And then I save it in their LinkedIn account, so I have it when I need it. So another quick tip on out of office messages are good. You can send them the message, but they will not get anything. So
they're on holiday, or they're closing their quarter. And so you're even less useful for them in all respects. But start a new quarter, then that's where you're relevant again.
Exactly.
I couldn't agree more.
On the other hand, I just want to add, during my journey at Microsoft, I helped one of the partnership, because, I always had a passion in that. So there is one of the Intel and Microsoft industry company. I helped them to launch their product in marketplace. Everybody was stuck there for 6 months. And I said, this is a great opportunity. The company name is Beekeeper AI. It's from UCSF spinoff. And they're after me. I'm kind of helping them for, maybe 10 hours. I said, I cannot help you much. But the beauty over there is completely opposite. Like yesterday, I was on the call with their chief medical officer, Goldsmith. And, the folks were there and said, let's reconnect. And, they're giving us a lead. So when there is a Microsoft invested company, you are in the other side of the wall. So, they are bringing leads, they are, introducing to this JP Morgan, Tom McNeese, and all these senior VPs and others, and say, let's meet in JP Morgan Healthcare and others. So, because this is one of the very unique product that they have in AI platform. So I think I'm helping them for a few months. They said, Sam, please help. And, I'm helping Dr. Michael Bloom from UCSF. So this is a UCSF spin-off company, but it's a different experience I have because, it's a Microsoft. So they are, engaging us. I'm getting a call, say, Sam, let's schedule meetings at JP Morgan, in January, the healthcare, with X company, Y company, Z company. So, but, working on the other side, it's still, I'm patient. I told them, my new company that, it's a people work for 20 years, they have vacation to burn. And, last 2-3 weeks, is that. It's like Europe, right? If you do a business, August is dead and December is dead. Yeah. I work for Philips. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. You will definitely get responses. And I think leveraging your network, and that is, I think, a good tip. Since you were there, reaching out to my friends. In fact, one of the Active Directory integration we did for VMware was because one of my friends from an old colleague now leads the Active Directory product team. So I reached out and say, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. We are trying to do this, and what do you think? And that thing, what do you think, led to, we want to do something with you. Why don't we get the teams together? And the next thing we announce that, right? So it is relationships. So start with the existing ones, but ask them what's on their commitment, because you may have left, but they still have commitments, right? So they still need to.
No, I'm reaching out to them, speaking their language. Say, I'm here to help you retire your quota, and retire your quota by October, and you have 2 months vacation before I think the fiscal year starts in July. So.
I think one thing that I did learn recently is that the marketplace is also, there are some accelerators now for marketplace. So if your solution is sold through marketplace, it's a good thing. So definitely talk to them about accelerators that they have for marketplace. Again, just a tip on what has worked for us is like, hey, what about marketplace? Do you get compensated for, or do you have any accelerators this quarter for marketplace? If yes, then that's great, because then your solution actually sits right there. It sounded like that you had something on market.
Yeah. So one thing I learned is we are co-sell verified. When you move to the next additional layer called co-sell incentive-wise, this is where if they have a 5,000 vendors, and if you are top 2 or 3, the AEs get more commission when they sell those products, and you are in top 5. So
we worked hard to get there, though. We weren't there. Our solutions were just co-sell ready. Mm-hmm. And then I actually hired one person on my team just to make sure that we were co-sell IP incentivized. Again, that was knowing the jargon, knowing that those accelerators would kick in for our products, and kind of really spending effort. And it was a lot of paperwork. It kind of...
Yeah, they asked for reference architectures and
there was the product team didn't have that. Someone had to go draw that out. We had to go find a solution architect to do that. I mean, it was work. So that is one thing that I would also kind of highlight is, if you're afraid of paperwork, then Microsoft is not the right partner for you, because they will put you through. And I mean, Bradley's probably done a bunch of that. I mean, a lot of it is just writing, filling out forms to just get through. And if it's not for the faint-hearted, if you get like, oh my God, I can't do this ops work, well, you're never going to get to the level of partnership. And that's one thing I did last year, is just did a bunch of that paperwork, just got it out of the way. We are part of the partner network. We have a MPN ID. We have, signed up for every incentive that we could think of. And we are reaping partner incentives now in millions of dollars for VMware. And nobody even knew that we could get that money in VMware. And we are like, well, this just kind of, now my team is self-funded. I mean, they just kind of keeps funding and they can keep paying us. Like, really, that's where we are.
Yeah, I think Microsoft has some strategic accounts, and we could get ECF funding. They call ECF. Yeah. So yeah. All right. Good.
We're gonna have to wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Neeti, for doing this, and everyone for asking questions. I think one lesson is she took a systematic approach to breaking down Microsoft and building for a secret database of everything that's going on, because I think that's what it takes to navigate an organization of this size. That's an interesting point. But I created this hash Microsoft group in the Slack channel so that we collectively could work on that, because not everyone as VMware can have resources, but we could share it out amongst ourselves. So let's continue there. And the CSA is here to support you. So Tamara and Lindsay can provide resources, like if you need Google Drive folders or Office 365 folders to organize this information. We can set that up for you as well. And I think Miguel's write-up is actually in that channel as well. So thank you again. The recording will be up shortly. I'll leave that to Lindsay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sunir, for having me. And thank you all for your questions and comments. And I learned a lot through this session as well, and keep the conversation going, and definitely be connected on the CSA Slack chat, and always available on LinkedIn to have a quick conversation and help you out. Thank you all.